So video games have always had good music. Like, this isn't like a groundbreaking thing, but I feel like pretty recently more people have started to understand and appreciate that video game music isn't like a separate category of music specifically for like nerds. And I see a lot of videos popping up on YouTube of people not just reacting to game OSTs, but also analyzing it and discussing what makes an OST good and how it might add to a particular game. Most of the time, these videos focus on the most well-known soundtracks, like from series like Sonic, Persona, Kingdom Hearts, Devil May Cry, Zelda, etc. Everyone knows those games have great music, and I wanted to highlight some games that I feel don't get a lot of attention, despite having soundtracks just as good, if not better, than some of the games I just listed. So I made a list of the top 10 most underrated gaming soundtracks of all time. Before we start, I quickly want to go over what makes a soundtrack good, and what I think makes a soundtrack underrated, so we're all on the same page. To me, a good soundtrack is one that can add a certain emotion or give energy while you're playing the game. A good example of this is a game I just beat recently, Uncharted 4. To this day, Uncharted 4 might have some of the most exciting set pieces in any video game. Even for an early PS4 title, the game looks gorgeous, but I think the secret ingredient to all of those set piece moments is the music. The gameplay could be twice as fun, but if the music was half as good, everything would feel super flat. And the super over-the-top bombastic cinematic set pieces of Uncharted only work because the music that's playing in those moments is doing its job properly, aka being a good soundtrack. Underrated for me is something that simply just doesn't get the love it deserves. Either not a lot of people know about it, or some people do know about it, but don't rate it as highly as they should. And with that, we can move on to the list. So number 10 on the list is a game called Speedrunners. You've maybe heard of it, maybe seen it before. It came out in 2016 and it was popular around then because a bunch of YouTubers and streamers would play it. The game's fun. Me and my friends played every once in a while, but we're here to talk about the music. The music in this game, for a little 4-player co-op racing game to where you just race on a course and last man standing, yada yada. The music in this game is very, very good. There's 8 tracks, technically 4 if you take into the fact that each of the tracks just has a variation, right? There's the track, and then there's the second version of the track for when you go into sudden death or whatever. Both versions slap, but mainly the sudden death versions of all these songs are really, really, really good. Even on their own, besides, you know, take them away from the game, you just listen to them by themselves. They're really, really good orchestral pieces with a lot of brass, and I feel like you wouldn't look at the gameplay of Speedrunners and expect the music to have this much going on. Regardless, it does, and it's really solid. Like I said earlier, a good soundtrack is one that can add energy, right? Add some emotion, and these songs definitely add to Speedrunners, the game as a whole. When you're playing the game, these songs, even though there's not that many of them, they're so good, it doesn't matter. Each time you hear the sudden death version, it's always hype, it's always cool. Yeah, I mean, I've never in my life, in like a top 10 list or like a favorite songs in any games list, heard anyone bring up the Speedrunners soundtrack. I wish I could put a little bit higher, but there's only 9 songs in the whole game, and they're pretty short. One of my favorites, I think one of most people's favorites when they hear it, is gonna be the one called Catch Up Part 2. list, a game called Patapon 2. Now, you might be listening to the music now and think I'm crazy, think I'm insane, but hey, it's my list. I think the music in this game is very unique. I also think it's underrated. Now, I've never heard anyone talk about Patapon, especially because it's a PSP game. This music, it just makes me smile. It just puts a smile on my face. It's got a completely unique vibe, and the way it adds to the game is a rhythm game, right? You press the buttons and then like a sequence of 4, pata, 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 pon, and then they'll move forward. Pon, chaka, pata, pon, right? And then they'll attack, something like that. And the way the stages work is as you go on, it keeps going, and the music and what you're doing kind of keeps escalating until there's a point where you hit the fever, and then that's when the real song of the stages kicks in. And all the songs, they're just unique, you know? It's like good music, good orchestral music with a bunch of Japanese kids going patapon in the background and shit, okay? Maybe you think I'm crazy. It's whatever. It's number 9 on the list. One of my favorite soundtracks is just called number 8 on the soundtrack list because it's in, I don't know, Japanese, I guess. Number 8 on the list, Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles Shredder's Revenge. So basically, this is just another Sonic Mania soundtrack, just to really simplify it, and everyone loves that one. It's made by T. Lopez, the same person that did that one, and it's just another collection of 90s styled retro bangers. Like it is what it is. Maybe this one isn't that underrated, but still, I don't hear that many people talk about it. Also, the reason why it's on the list pretty much is because there's a Wu-Tang Clan song on this soundtrack. And again, like why does the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles Shredder's Revenge 90s game have a Wu-Tang Clan song on it? I don't know. I feel like more people should be talking about that, you know? I didn't really know that until recently. It's one of those games where as you're playing it, you're not really playing it for the game. I feel like for me, 40% of the reason why I played through most of the game is just to hear the music, you know, and just hear, okay, what kind of theme is this level gonna have? That's how good the music is in this game. I don't think I gotta explain it too much. It kind of speaks for itself a little bit, especially because like you kind of like this kind of music or you don't, but it's doing a specific kind of thing and it's doing it really, really well. My favorite song is the one called Jaw-Breaking News. Number 7 on the list is Dead Rising. This game isn't on the list necessarily because the music are a bunch of absolute bangers, a bunch of slappers, you know, they're gonna make you go wild. But the reason why I think the soundtrack is great is because of how much it adds to the atmosphere of Dead Rising. The mall music itself, you know, it's pretty catchy. I feel like everyone knows what Mall Music 3 sounds like. It's probably going to be playing right now. Even if you don't know it's from Dead Rising, you've probably heard this song in like a YouTube video or something. The music is just very catchy. It's kind of nostalgic to me. You know, I really like Dead Rising. I think Dead Rising is a little underrated. You know, it's probably the best zombie game ever made. You know, one of the most unique games ever made. But whatever, that's neither here nor there. There are a few like actual songs. That stands out to me is the kind of tension music. You know, the songs that starts playing when like stuff gets serious. It's just called Zombie. I had to look it up. I'm like, why can't I think of the name? It's literally just called Zombie. So the game does have good music, but the thing that I think makes it great is literally just how much better Dead Rising is with the music. And I also think nobody talks about Dead Rising, so nobody definitely talks about the soundtrack. That's why it's on the list. Maybe you think I'm crazy. I guess stop saying that. But it's whatever. My favorite song would probably be Mall Music 5. Number 6, Lethal League Blaze. Okay, unlike Dead Rising, this one is on the list specifically because it's a soundtrack full of a bunch of absolute slappers and bangers, okay? It's a game where it's technically a fighting game, but you guys just hit a baseball back and forth and it goes faster and faster. You know, there's a bunch of tech and like whatever. The songs, it's just a bunch of techno, funky, upbeat music, but there's a lot of it, and I'd say a good 40 to 50% of the tracks are really good. I feel like there's not too much to say about this game or the soundtrack, because it kind of just speaks for itself. You kind of hear the music and then like either your head starts bumping immediately or you just don't like it. I think Lethal League is underrated, so definitely the soundtrack is underrated, you know, just by proxy, which is why it's a little higher on the list, but also because the songs in this game are really, really, really good. The only thing is, they are, I feel like, more genuine songs kind of put in a video game rather than video game music, I guess, is a little caveat I'll like put there. That's kind of cheating, you know, like just like making a dubstep song and putting it in a game doesn't necessarily make it a, you know, video game music. Regardless, it's a really, really good soundtrack, really banging soundtrack. Everyone's favorite song is called Ain't Nothing Like a Funky Beat. I'm not gonna play that one. One of my favorite songs is called Junga by D-Fast. Number 5 on the list, the original Ratchet and Clank. Now, Ratchet and Clank, the series, I wouldn't say is underrated. You know, people play the games, people like the games, but I don't think any of the modern Ratchet and Clank fans know that the original OG Ratchet and Clank had a banger this funky and groovy and fucking unique. The soundtrack in this game is just full of a bunch of well-made, catchy, kind of funky, just bassy music. I don't know. And it's high because of how, I want to say, underrated it is. This is another soundtrack where you've probably heard a few of these songs in somebody's video, but you didn't know it was from the very first Ratchet and Clank. A lot of the music, it's very catchy and fast and upbeat, but it also has that spacey galactic vibe to it, which is the kind of game Ratchet and Clank is. You know, you're hopping between a bunch of planets, and the music also does a good job of being specific to each planet or each environment that you're in, right? Having a different vibe and kind of matching the tone and creating a better atmosphere for the overall game. The music really does a good job of kind of like really giving you a sense of place of what kind of planet you're on. One of my favorite songs would probably be Kizil Plateau, which is pretty much the most basic one. I think that's a lot of people's favorite ones, but it's my favorite one too. Streets of Rage 4 is the number 4 pick. So this soundtrack like the Shredder's Revenge soundtrack, is a more 90s retro sort of soundtrack. But this one is just, I don't want to just say it's a lot better, but I think the variety of music and the kind of different tones of each song, there's a lot more range and variety in this soundtrack, but it still has that kind of 90s retro beat 'em up game feel, but it's also kind of more modern too, you know, like it kind of feels like it could be a more electronic kind of dubstep-y kind of music too. But the music in this game is phenomenal. Definitely the best I've heard of this genre of music. This soundtrack is what fueled me to beat this game. I started playing the game on a whim. I think it was on Game Pass, like, oh, Streets of Rage 4, it's new, whatever. And you know, Streets of Rage 4, everyone's saying it's good, I'll play it. And then I heard the music and I was like, ooh. And then you keep going, and every single piece of music that comes on in this game is phenomenal. Definitely an amazing soundtrack, and it's high on the list because, again, I don't hear anybody talk about it. I don't hear anyone bring up Streets of Rage 4. I don't hear anyone bring up this soundtrack. Again, maybe I'm in some weird bubble, but Streets of Rage 4, number 4. My favorite song would be the one called Apex Train. I think it's Apex? I think it's Apex, but it's spelled weird. Number 3 is One Piece Pirate Warriors 4. The reason why this game is high on the list is because, one, I think the music is really good, but also for how underrated it is. No one plays Musou games, not let alone the One Piece specific Musou games. So then no one knows how absolutely amazing the soundtrack is for these games. Koei Tecmo in general, they just make great soundtracks, but a lot of their games, besides their mainline Dynasty Warriors or Samurai Warriors games, are spin-offs. There's Persona Musou games, there's Zelda Musou games, and there's One Piece Musou games. And the Persona and Zelda spin-off games all have amazing, fantastic music too, but it's kind of cheating if I put it on the list because it's remixes of some of the best video game music ever, right? But One Piece, there was no previous One Piece series of games that were well known for having amazing music. So when the Pirate Warrior series started to come out and they had great music, it's different. The fourth game, not only is there just a large amount of music because they bring over tracks from all the previous games, but they also remix those previous versions. So any version of the song that was in like a previous game is in this game, plus has a Pirate Warriors 4 version, and those versions tend to be the best versions of the songs. The soundtracks just sound nice. There's a bunch of orchestral brass pieces with a lot of trumpets, the songs with a lot of electric guitar with really cool guitar solos. And the music definitely does a good job of fueling the gameplay. Just you mashing the square button wouldn't be as fun without the songs in the background. So definitely an underrated soundtrack. I feel like you can go on the OST list and click on a variety of different songs, and most of them are really, really good. My favorite would be the one called I Want to Live, the Pirate Warriors 4 version. Disgaea 2. The Disgaea series in general is probably a little bit underrated. I don't think it's actually underrated just because of the kind of game it is. You know, it's a very anime inspired, anime centric game that very much leans into the anime, which, you know, kind of puts a lot of people off. You know, like, there's a lot of fan service and ecchi and yada yada yada. The games have a very unique soundtrack. They do this thing where they play a lot of electric violin. They have a lot of flutes. I don't know, it's just a very unique form of music. I've never heard a soundtrack like the ones that they put in the Disgaea games, but the best one is the one in Disgaea 2, in my opinion. Just a lot of really hype songs, especially for a game, tactical turn-based strategy game, so there's no reason for the music to be this bumping. But it is, and it's really good. Like, the songs by themselves, you could just listen to, and they're really great. They have a lot going on. There's a lot of effort put into the songs, clearly. And I think considering the age of the game, considering how underrated it is why it's really high up on my list personally. Also, I'm, you know, not gonna lie, Disgaea 2, very nostalgic for me. Even still, I think the soundtrack to this game is amazing. A lot of very unique sounding music that's very good. Yeah, I feel like there's kind of not that much like it. in the form of video games, unless I'm mistaken, but that's why it's very high on my list. So my favorite theme, besides the opening of the game, it has like an anime style opening. I don't know if I can play that. If I can, it'll probably be the first thing you hear for the game. My favorite song besides that is the one called Cyber Dance. It's the theme for the item world. Number 1, the most underrated video game soundtrack, in my opinion, is from Naruto Ultimate Ninja Storm 2. Now, you might be hearing this and think, what? That's not underrated. Everyone knows that Naruto Storm 2 has great music. I'm not arguing that. I'm arguing that it should be applauded even more for how good the music is, and for the for the quantity of great music that's in this game, on top of how the soundtracks add to the boss battles of the game and how they fit for the theme and tone of the Naruto series in general. It's a lot, which is why I put it into number 1. To start off, I know I've probably said before for other games, oh, every piece of music in this soundtrack is amazing. When I say every piece of music in the Naruto Ultimate Ninja Storm 2 soundtrack is amazing, I mean that. I mean the title screen, the fucking options screen. Any piece of music that they put in this game, they put their foot in that bitch. This shit is phenomenal. The music that plays when you win a fight or lose, basically when a match is over, it's so good, and it's crazy how nostalgic I feel hearing this song. But then if you go on the soundtrack and just click on a song, they're all so good. To the big emotional pieces that they use for all the boss battles, to just the music that they use for the stages when you're just, fighting in matches. Any stage theme in this game is maybe some of the best stage music I've heard in any fighting game. Again, that might be crazy to say, I know. Guilty Gear, fucking Melty Blood, Under Night In Birth, Street Fighter, yes, all these games have amazing soundtracks, but this one does too, and it's just as good, if not better, than a lot of those themes. I'm telling you, click on any piece of music in this game and it's phenomenal. To very hype, just bangers with a lot of guitar and just percussion and drums, to the boss themes. And another thing about this soundtrack is how much it feels like Naruto. When I think about Naruto, obviously I think about the dude with orange hair, but a lot of the time I think about music from this game specifically. A big one I can shout out is the Hidden Leaf Village theme from this game. For when you fight in the Hidden Leaf Village in this game, that to me is Naruto. I feel like I'm just rambling. I'm just going on and on. But another thing I really want to talk about with this soundtrack is just the way it can express the themes and emotion and the weight of a lot of the fights in Naruto through the music. What do I mean by that? 99% of the big main fights in Naruto, when you really think about it, there's a sad undertone behind it. You know, there's a sad backstory behind it. Naruto versus Sasuke, Sasuke versus Itachi, Jiraiya versus Pain, fucking Kakashi versus Obito, right? You get the idea. A lot of the songs do this thing where it's slow, it's quiet, you know. They'll have this like little piece. It's also there so that while you're in the boss fights, you can hear the dialogue. But they also do this thing where they add in the quiet, they add in the sad, and then they boom, and then they hit you with the hype, and then they hit you with the big soundtrack. And they do this in a lot of the themes, and every single time it slaps and it hits and it gives me goosebumps, and it's so good. It really is good. The reason why I put this as number one is because I think this soundtrack should be up there with Persona, with Kingdom Hearts, with Final Fantasy. I seriously think the Naruto Ultimate Ninja Storm 2 soundtrack is one of the best soundtracks in gaming. And I think more people should be saying that. Again, people hear the music and they say it's good, or when they think back on it, they say, yes, you know, Storm 2 had the best music. I'm saying it's better than a majority of soundtracks in video games. Straight up. Don't believe me? Go on the soundtrack, type in Naruto Ultimate Ninja Storm 2, click on any song. They're all amazing. They're all amazing. I'm rambling. I'm shouting at the air. I feel like that's the end of the video. Let me know about the list. I really want to see other people's lists for underrated music, because obviously I don't think anything could be more subjective than a top 10 list of the most underrated soundtracks in video games, right? That's the video, and thank you for watching.